All right, today we're going to be focusing on how to write and develop an analytical claim. These are the beginning of our paragraphs and a key part of us being able to effectively answer any rhetorical analysis prompt. As I'm modeling, you're going to be having your Google document open so that you can take notes on the questions I ask myself and my thinking steps. You might also want to write down my responses in order to have an exemplar response of your own. Before we jump in, I just want to remind you, before we ever think about an analytical claim, we have to read and annotate the text, right? You already did this before. I'm going to focus my model on paragraphs 42 through 44 of Obama's inaugural address. These are written already for you in your Google document. As I read and annotate, I always want to think about what claims do I see and how are those claims being developed, right? This section had a lot of really great stuff, but two things that stuck out to me the most were the repetition of us, our, and we. That felt like a great example of unifying diction, which is important in an inaugural address, and the use of very short sentences in each paragraph, followed by much lengthier ones explaining the situation. I'm going to focus my model today on that short sentences. So my first step was to characterize a rhetorical choice. So what choice best makes up Obama's line of reasoning? I said varied syntax because we talked about in JFK's inaugural address how an author can use a short sentence to make a statement, usually one that lots of folks can agree with, and then he'll follow that statement up with a longer sentence explaining his idea or rationale, right? But that short sentence kind of grits everybody's attention and gets everybody on the same page. So I'm going to go ahead and characterize this choice and kind of say a little bit about what I think it means. Throughout this final section of Obama's speech, Obama consistently varies his syntax by introducing each of his ideas on America's path forward with a short sentence, followed by a longer sentence explaining the complexity of America's situation. So here I have stated where I see this rhetorical choice, and I've given a little bit of information. So I've described it, right? The next thing I want to do after I characterize or describe a rhetorical choice is make a connection to the audience. So the first thing I'd ask myself is, who is the audience? Well, we know he's talking to Americans, right? But Americans is kind of vague. So I'm thinking about he's talking to all Americans. This means Americans who voted for him, Americans who didn't vote for him, Americans who are Democrats, Americans who are Republicans, Americans who are for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan at this time, Americans who are against it. And like, what do those people share, believe, or value, or need at this time? All Americans are struggling under the weight of an economic recession, right? Millions of folks have lost their jobs, lost their homes. So Obama's got to find a way to bring everybody together regardless of political party. And that's how I summed up my step 2. In beginning each sentence with a statement that all Americans can agree with, right? Everybody can get on the same page, regardless of their political party and feelings about American issues. Obama hopes to unify this country before going into detail on how they can work to achieve his vision. So now that I've made a connection to audience, step 3 is about making a connection to purpose. And I have to ask myself, what is the writer's message? What does the writer want the audience to do with the message, right? And how does this choice help the author get there? Well, I've kind of done some of this work already, but by varying his syntax to share his message of change, right, Obama is able to continue to push a message of hope and change to unify all Americans. I know you told me on Monday his message was about change, a better America, a more hopeful America, right? So by varying his syntax to push that message out, he's able to continue to help unify Americans around this vision, around this purpose. And my last step is to just name and cite the location of my evidence, right? And the syntax happens in paragraphs 42 and 44. Now, we wrote 4 sentences, but an analytical claim is only 1 sentence. So we're going to take the best pieces and parts of those sentences and turn them into one. So let me show you what this looks like. Here's my analytical claim. As Obama prepares to close out his speech, in paragraphs 42 through 44, he begins each paragraph by introducing his ideas of America's future with a short declarative sentence. There you go. That's that characterization of my evidence. Remember step 1. In an effort to unite all Americans regardless of political party, there's my connection to audience. around a message of hope and change for America's future. That's my connection to purpose. And this is the introduction of my evidence. And that's how we write an analytical claim. After we write an analytical claim, we're not done because these are the beginning of our paragraphs, right? So the next thing we have to do is figure out, okay, well, what about my evidence, right? I got to select a good example of evidence. So the first step is that you pick out what you're going to write about. So I chose to write about paragraphs 43 and 44. What is demanded then is a return to these truths. This is the price and the promise of citizenship. All I'm going to do is just embed my evidence. So check out my sentence. Obama opens paragraphs 43 with a declarative statement, what is demanded, then is a return to these truths, to introduce his idea of returning to American values, and begins paragraph 44 with the statement, this is the price and promise of citizenship, to stamp the need for those values in America's future. So just an intro to my evidence, and I made sure to embed it right by explaining it a little bit more and telling what each of those sentences was about. Then after I've done that, I need to give commentary. So here's that part where we start to actually do that like rhetorical analysis work, right? By varying his syntax, this was that by phrase that we've been using in all of our chunks, Obama appeals to Americans' patriotism as he opens his argument with a statement that all Americans can agree with. Remember, I said that in my other analysis. This allows the audience to be more receptive to his message and vision on how to repair the nation in the complex sentences following his shorter one. These shorter declarative statements, Obama unites all Americans under the values in order to push them to adopt his vision for change in America. So this is all about that commentary, right? This is that part. This is the meat. This is the best part. How does a writer make this choice? What is effective about it? And how does it appeal to an audience? These are the steps for writing an analytical claim and developing a rhetorical analysis body paragraph.